Welcome to our worlds of horror. I'm Meeka Nomicon, and today I'm playing for the game Sanator, the Jewel of the Monostructure, where we play as Richard Murdoch, as Sanator within a town that's recently been plagued by a series of thefts. The only thing is, it's said the culprit isn't exactly human. Pain. The Sanator writhes on the dirty ground that reeks of dampness and decay. His head buzzes as if someone had rung it like a church bell. Oh, damn it! As soon as the veil dissolves, Richard's stare greedily fixes upon the blade of a dagger stuck into the ground nearby. Well, thanks for nothing. Struggling to overcome his dizziness, the Senator props himself up and turns his back against the blade, hoping his bones are still intact. Tightly bound by some unknown knot, Richard's numb hands barely respond to his commands. Rippling tremors run through the ground, but Richard doesn't notice them. Trying to avoid injury, he fumbles around and places the tight rope against the blade's edge. Only when the air quivers with low, deep pulsations does the Senator slowly raise his head, unable to tear his eyes away from the gaping darkness underneath the archway. Richard's heart skips a beat when he senses an ominous stare directed at him. Someone, or something, is gazing back at him from the thick, murky darkness. Come on, come on, come on! The Senator speaks through clenched teeth, shifting his wrists in desperation. Come on! Richard hears the creaking sounds of single threads breaking off the rope. Slow, too slow. A deafening hacking squeal resounds throughout the hall. Richard screams out of anger and despair, realizing he's not getting out of this place alive. And suddenly, there is light. It's the kind that burns your eyes like the rays of the midday sun. After a moment of confusion, a small fire of hope lights up in the Senator's soul, for as everyone knows, light always gives birth to a shadow. Richard shuts his eyes, takes a deep breath, and shouts at the top of his lungs, "Anger!" One day earlier. Richard? Sorry, I got lost in thought. Describe it again. The Senator shifts from one foot to another, trying to stretch his aching, overworked back. It's about time to conclude their lesson. Anger's voice is still excited and loud. It's red and looks like a bean or a mushroom cap. And there's some sort of pipe branching out of its side. A kidney, the Senator does his best to guess. Is there another one just like it on the other side? No, I don't think so. Richard instinctively leans against the edge of the tabletop and heaves a weary sigh. Darkness shrouds his vision, but giving her the right answer is easy. It's Linem, the spleen. And what do you need it for? Touched by his shadow's genuine curiosity, Richard smiles underneath his mask. Actually, we're not even sure ourselves, the Senator thinks. It's a blood-creating organ, he says. Aha! Anger replies enthusiastically. Got it! The shadow greedily devours the concepts of reality, but Richard is not a selfless teacher. Sooner or later, he will meet a soul too stupid or even too recklessly bold to stand in his way. In such a case, anger knowing the basics of vivisection will come in extremely handy. The Senator's hearing, bolstered by his loss of sight, catches the sound of shuffling clothes somewhere to his side. Richard asks in a stern voice, Anger, is there anybody else besides us in the mortuary? It's just some boy, the shadow replies dismissively. He's been standing here for a while. Give me my eyes back, Anger. I wish to look more. Give them back, Richard insists. A moment passes, and his vision returns. The shadow snorts in annoyance and goes silent. The Senator shifts his gaze from the bodies sprawled on the table to the dark silhouette in the doorway. How can I help you? Brother Sanator? A trembling, faltering voice addresses him. A message. Give it to me. The ivory mask's heavy beat makes its owner's voice sound low and harsh. The senator walks towards the messenger, making him back away timidly. Come on, don't be afraid. I mean, maybe you could at least take your glove off. It's seeming a little bit, bloody. Richard stretches out his hand, only to realize that it's smeared in post-mortem blood. After finally getting the letter from the boy's shaking hands, the senator opens the bag on his belt. Give me a moment. His fingers, wrapped in the leather of a glove, fish out a single small coin with great difficulty. Then, Richard notices he's standing all alone. The boy is nowhere in sight, but one might expect that. After all, it looked like the senator was speaking to himself, a sight that probably looks most bizarre. Incidents like this give birth to rumors among the populace and breed a supernatural fear about the Brotherhood. Oh well, what can you do about it? Richard grumbles, trying to undo the wax seal with his nails. The letter greets him with a smell of fresh ink and a sequence of lines written in a pedantic but angry hand. I write to you to express my displeasure and urge you to take immediate action. Yesterday, I lost possession of a ham I was saving for my beloved aunt Henrietta's birthday. And you know what? I'm sure it's all Willie N's doing. This scoundrel has been trying to court my pure-hearted daughter for a year, and now has stooped as low as heinous theft. The sleeper is my witness. If you don't return my ham, I'll strangle the bugger with my own 2 hands. Richard's tired gaze meanders through the paragraph, but the senator can't understand how this letter relates to him. Then an idea to check the letter's other side finally comes to mind. Oh, Brother Senator Richard Murdoch. The senator rolls his eyes, expecting a string of meaningless ornamentations. Sometimes, such a writing style looks almost beautiful, but the real goal behind it is to mask the writer's uneducated and dim-witted nature. We expect to see you at the town hall immediate. The ornate, ridiculously intricate handwriting jumps around, as if the letter's author wrote it on an uneven surface. It's uncharacteristic of someone used to writing countless formal reports in the most unlikely places. An executor or maybe an ink stain. The writer was clearly unfocused. The letter ends with a small, careless bit of handwriting, belonging to a man used to noting down huge amounts of text without caring whether another person would understand his notes. Come quickly. The senator can't help but smile. There was no need for a signature. Winfred grabbed the first piece of paper he found, and where there's Winfred, there's also his inseparable companion, Avis. You wouldn't be able to miss that duo, a hulking executor and a scrawny senator. At first, their friendship seemed odd to Richard, considering how different they were, but as time passed, it seemed less and less suspicious. The senator battles a yawn and looks around. The mortuary's lights are going dim, which means it's almost morning. The intricate mirror system, built in the times of the Isla, can only focus moonlight. Soon this place will succumb to darkness, with only a few torches charring the ancient walls. Just before leaving, Richard throws one final look at the deceased. Mortuses will clean up the tools and get the body ready for the burial. Thank the sleeper it wasn't cholera. The poor soul simply died from ingesting poison mushrooms. The city is safe, but the senator understands how tenuous safety is, like no one else. It's always calm before the storm. Peace is always bound to end. Richard spins the unexpected letter in his hands, lost in thought. He wants to get a good night's sleep. After all, if the matter was truly important, They'd call him to the Hasburg, not the town hall. Okay, do we want to go to the meeting or return home? See, I love sleeping as much as the next person, but I'm also infinitely curious why you want us to go to the meeting. We're going to the meeting. Richard heaves a sigh. He'll end up thinking about the message from the brothers, and that would deter his sleep anyway. I hope it's not an invitation for another round of drunken revelry. He leaves the mortuary hall and goes up the stairs, outpacing the creeping semi-darkness. The city greets the Sanator with fresh morning air, and he squirms, burying himself in his scarlet cloak. The deceptive golden light of the rising sun barely brings any warmth. Ooh, we do paint a nice pitch though, rather dashing in our red cape. Richard walks on the paved road, watching his shadow stretch in front of him. The northern sun gleams on the red glass of the raven mask. The few passers-by fearfully get out of the Senator's way, trying to hide from his sight and avoid touching his shadow. In some of them, Richard recognizes people he's helped before, like curing their ailments or shielding them from trouble. Still, Richard does not blame them. His hands have killed much more often than they've granted life. He's a Sanator, a plague doctor. There was a price of his craft. Shh, he whispers calmly, noticing his shadow tremble angrily. They don't mean anything bad, Anger. The Sanator can see discolored flags that were once green in the distance. A lonely bell in its tower shines with a bronze glory. Richard ascends the marble staircase of the town hall and greets the doorman with a wave of his hand. They let him in. Muffled voices are coming out from somewhere above, and I believe them. Who knows? Maybe they were drunk enough to confuse a tail with a braid. Richard immediately recognizes the voices of his colleagues. He climbs the spiral staircase and greets his brothers. So, Richard! Winfred, the executor, raises his head and smiles from ear to ear. The Senator notices a mark underneath his friend's only eye. An eye patch has covered the other one for a long time. Apparently, Winfred also hasn't had a wink of sleep. This night, a pile of papers is strewn around the massive table, made of reddish smoked anchovy. You need to see this! Avis jumps up, nervously waving a scroll. These reports! A high-pitched voice sounds worried, even through his mask. What happened? Theft, Winfred replies, rubbing his hands over the club tucked under his bout. And what was stolen? Nothing valuable, in the common sense of the word. What do you mean? Avis heaves a deep sigh and shrugs. Dry bread, dry fish, cheese, sausages. Richard tilts his head. A vagabond, then? A pauper? The Brotherhood of St. Almo puts great effort into making sure every person in Tantaria has the right to a decent life, but there is still a long road ahead of them when it comes to fighting poverty. Why are we suddenly doing the magistrate's work, by the way? Richard inquires. Since when did the Brotherhood start investigating sausage thefts? Avis crosses his arms behind his back and starts pacing around the room like a ruffled pigeon. Winfred stays silent. The Brotherhood has reasons to believe that the thief is not human. The Sanator slowly draws a protective sign over himself. Does the head exorcist know? Winfred and Avis look at each other, and the former bursts out laughing as heartily as his scary looks allow. Not in that sense, Richard. Someone's hand gently lands on the Senator's shoulder. Indeed, this is not a case that would warrant my intervention. Richard shudders and turns around towards the voice of his old comrade. Weiger Brandt, how long has he been here? I just came in, the exorcist says, as if replying to Richard's thoughts. But I've heard about the thefts. Move on. All right then. Then what's the deal? The witnesses all insist that our little thief has animal ears and a tail. The Sanator raises his brows in surprise. An Isla here in Rustant. It's getting more and more interesting. Richard calculates the distance to the tiger in his mind, affirming his assessment that it's impossible. I'd rather believe someone is making fools of us. Yeah, but there are some peculiarities at play. Avis gestures at the open map of the city. All the incidents occurred near the sewer entrances. In other words, Richard mumbles with a realization forming in his mind. An Isla, or a group of them, is directly underneath us in the Monostructure. Monostructure. That one word carries the chilling feel of a graveyard. Do you suggest we go down there? Asked the Sanator, feeling goosebumps covering his forearms. The sleepers save us, Richard. We're not purgators. Of course not. Winfried waves his wide hand in disagreement. We'll set up an ambush. Tomorrow night, we'll meet here before sunset and discuss the details. Until then... Brother Avis lets out a long yawn and starts dozing off, making him look even more like a bird. Until then, we all need to get a good rest, Winfried finishes. Richard says goodbye to the brothers and leaves the town hall. An unidentifiable worry is whirling inside him, making him think of the Elder again and again. If something is really making the savages move into Rustant, it's unlikely anybody would learn about their presence. If the Elder risk getting caught stealing simple food, they must be in trouble by now. In big, big trouble. There we go, made my way home. After getting to his residence, the Sanator opens the rusty, creaky gate and slips into the front yard. There, in the shade of an old apple tree, stands the decrepit barn where he stores his work clothes. Richard slowly disrobes, trying not to touch the sparkling tar, a simple rule, breaking which can lead to a sudden demise. With deep-rooted movements, the Sanator pulls off his tall boots and takes off his mask. Red hues give way to blue ones. Heat gives way to freshness. Richard inhales the cool air around him in bliss, washes off the remaining protective ointment from his face, and stumbles into the hallway. His tingling legs tell him to get to bed quickly and fall asleep. Old Magda is still sleeping. Of course, Richard carefully climbs the creaky stairway, trying not to wake the old lady. His room is already warmed up. After glancing at the food tray with no apparent interest, the Senator yawns and plops on his bed. He's home. Is this really his home, though? He was just another tenant to Magda. With Tentaria as your mother and Almo as your father, all good people from the frozen taiga to the shining milky mountains will call you brother. This is what he was taught his entire life. He has a surname, Murdoch, but no family, just the brotherhood. And you, right? You, Richard thinks, watching the rays of the pale northern sun draw his shadow's silhouette. The shadow suddenly becomes fuzzy and flickers like candlelight. Sorry, Anga, not today. The Senator turns around, knowing full well that now he's in need of regular sleep, not the thing Anga is so excited about. Richard buries his frowning face in the pillow, but the burning feeling of loneliness does not disappear. To hell with it, he decides. Breathe in, breathe out. To calm his mind, disturbed by thoughts, the Senator shuts his eyes tightly. opening them only to appear in a completely different place. The dream welcomes him with a procession of grotesque forms, shrouded in a pale glow. At the edge of his vision, he sees the swarming silhouettes of inner dwellers. After noticing Richard, the nocturnals hide in the semi-darkness, reluctant to draw the gaze that can easily harm their fragile bodies. Ding, ding, ding. The Sanator struggles through the darkness and walks among the labyrinths of walls, growing in the limitless spaces. The crystal chime beckons to him, showing him the way. Ding ding. There are no doors in the Shadow's abode, but Richard habitually lingers at the threshold, calming unwanted feelings. The owner of this chamber sits in a monstrous-looking chair, with her back to Richard and her legs crossed as if she has a grudge against him. Ding! She waves her hand lazily, and the chains on her thin wrist jingle like tiny bells. "Do you like it?" Anga asks without turning around. Richard tries not to show how happy he is to hear her voice. The Shadow only pretends she's indifferent to her guest. This simple prelude has become their tradition over the years. The Senator follows Anga's eyes and notices a small, ugly tower of meat. "What's this?" "A sculpture," his Shadow replies, clearly proud of herself. It seems that her lessons in the mortuary are paying off. "And what or who does it depict?" "This is..." The Shadow pauses for a brief moment, trying to remember the correct word. "An abstraction." "Well, it looks good then." Richard silently steps closer and strokes the straight lines of her chestnut-colored hair. Then he leans in and embraces Anga's shoulders, giving the tip of her ear a gentle touch with his nose. At that moment, Anga turns into smoke that smells of bitter monkwort. It streams up, slipping through Richard's fingers. Then it curls into a ball and takes the form of a graceful young woman again. A young woman with facial features so closely resembling Richard's. "You're too kind to all these people, Richard. They are scared of you and hate you." The Shadow's amber eyes burn with extreme annoyance. The Senator heaves a sigh and sits down in a now vacant seat. "And thou shalt do good, desiring nary a reward. For what is the value?" He quotes the pompous words of the Testament. "They all recoil in fear at the sight of your shadow." "Ah, for this. I can't even blame them," Richard thinks, smirking. "Your smile is akin to ramming needles under my nails." Angus splashes onto the ground like ink and turns into a black cat. Then she jumps into Richard's lap, curls up her furry paws and gets comfortable. You gotta admit, she makes an adorable cat. The Senator raises his eyebrows. "So, you think it's true? There are really elder in restaurant." "I feel the jailers of my sisters are not lying." "Who?" the Senator asks. "Your brothers. They believe in what they're saying." "Ah." Richard brushes his fingers against the cat's wet nose. "You know, sometimes people believe in the most ridiculous and incredible things." "I don't like this, Richard." "Neither do I, Anga. Neither do I." "Huh?" She likes the pets. Richard gently strokes her fur. The Shadow purrs in response and showers him with compliments, but it's all just a game. "The Shadow is not a sister and not a true friend to you. She is your eternal enemy, the enemy of any brother. Richard is her jailer, and Anga will do anything to obtain the key to her chains." They have a lengthy conversation before Richard starts to lose track of it. Anka is still telling him something in an enthusiastic voice, but the senator's eyes are drooping. He silently nods and smiles until his consciousness gradually fades into the fog. Richard shudders, awoken by an unbearable smell of something burning. As if spellbound, he gets out of bed and wanders to the window, from which a scarlet glow is pouring. The senator already knows what he will see through it. The glow of countless fires, pillars of thick, pungent smoke towering high into the sky. White crosses hastily drawn on boarded up doors and shutters. Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong. The bell rings frantically in the distance. Richard stretches out his shaking hand and touches the glass. It's cold. The delusion fades away, letting Richard enjoy the sunset for a while. The dim northern sun glints with bronze one last time and finally sinks below the horizon. No, thank the sleeper, it's not Hellenberg. It's just good old Rusdont, with its rowdy taverns, the fair, and the gingerbread quarter that never smells like gingerbread. It's an inconspicuous town that has avoided big tragedies for almost a century. But Hellenberg felt that way too. The epidemic started out of nowhere. Before the Brotherhood could do anything, the pestilence was already unstoppable. It spread through the city, eating up households and districts one by one. Panic, fear, and riots, of course. Richard stares into the bleak reflection of his green eyes. Back then, 4 years ago, he was the one giving orders, brutal orders, orders that would see hundreds perish to save thousands. He remembers their faces, all of them, those he refused to help, barring them from crossing the quarantine cordons, dooming them to certain death, begging, threatening, desperate. Richard has long forgiven himself, but one man still will never forgive him. Weiger. A draft hits him from the cracks in the window's frame. The senator touches his forehead, covered in sticky sweat. He brushes away a lock of hair the color of fallen leaves. He massages his throbbing temples and sniffs. This is not the billowing smoke from the bodies engulfed in hungry flames. It's just old Magda, frying cracklings in the kitchen. Sudden worry stings his heart like a needle. We'll gather here before sundown. Richard has slept all day long. Right now, his brothers must be discussing the plan for the upcoming ambush. The senator curses, sweeps food from his tray and runs downstairs and rushes outside. Dreaming with the shadow doesn't provide any rest. Such is the price for communing with another plane of reality. No matter how much of a hurry he is in, Richard can't rush putting on his outfit. In a dusty shed, by the light of an oil lamp, he rubs ointment on his neck and pulls on his tall fisherman's boots and worn leather gloves. Then, he carefully wraps a cloak around himself and fastens the straps of his raven mask. The senator hesitates for a moment, trying to calm his worried heart. Finally, he puts on his hat and clutches his faithful cane. So go and fight, for deeds shine brighter than names. The words of the testament ring out in his ears. Richard opens the front gate and goes out into the April evening, still as cold as winter. Annoyed at being late, he nervously bangs his cane against the cobblestones, rushes between slumping houses, and passes windows that are getting dark one by one. A lone stranger walks towards him. The senator pays no attention, but as soon as he passes, Richard slows down and stops without ceasing his tapping. Clack, clack, clack. He takes him another moment to realize what's going on. The senator watches the back of the stranger, dressed in a long hooded cloak. The stranger walks with a deliberately slow gait, but breathes heavily as if he had been running recently. Clack. Maybe just a night messenger? Not the least bit afraid of my shadow, Richard suddenly realizes. His cane freezes in midair. The clatter of boots comes from somewhere. Richard turns towards the sound, noticing the flames of torches dancing on the damp cobblestones. Who's there? A group of brothers led by Winfred stumbles around the corner. The executor feverishly turns his head in all directions and then shouts, noticing Richard. After him, Richard! Go! Don't just stand there! The tip of his cane swishes against the cobblestones, relaying a ringing pain in the Sanator's shoulder. He shifts his weight onto the cane, swiftly turns around and gives chase to the stranger. The escapee is already at the end of the street. Where the tenebrae did you go? Winfred shouts after catching up to his comrade. The Sanator grits his teeth, unable to reply. The chaser's ruckus drowns out all other sounds, leaving only his ragged breathing and the blood pounding in his temples. They run in pursuit, every now and then losing sight of the thief until Winfred motions for them to split up. Richard jumps over a fence, taking a shortcut over the tiled roof of the stable. Finally, the brothers corner their prey in a narrow alleyway. Give up! Richard wheezes, swallowing thick saliva. In reply, the thief takes up a fighting stance and whips out a dagger. Cold blue eyes shine in the darkness. Well, you asked for this. The brothers rush forward all at once. The area stands still, frozen like a marble statue. Richard senses danger and stops, barely dodging Winfred's club. Its steel pommel flashes before his eyes and crashes into a nearby brick wall. Having managed to dodge in the nick of time, the thief appears right behind Winfred. Winfred! The alien lunges at the executor. At the same time, Winfred stumbles on a plank and crashes into a woodpile with a clatter. Damn it! With a battle cry, Richard springs at the enemy, swings his cane over and over, but only manages to cut through air. Oh, I think I got stabbed. The alien feints and slashes up with a dagger thrust, preventing Richard from recovering. The Sanator's nose splits apart under the blade. Richard staggers back, unconsciously covering his nose with his hand. Thank the sleeper, only his raven beak but not his real face. Leaping from the spot, the thief dives into an open passage. Richard helps his comrade stand up. I'm fine, Winfred growls, brushing wood away. Don't let him get away! Richard nods and rushes into the alleyway, unstrapping what's left of his mask as he runs. The thief glances over his shoulder and dashes around a bend. Where did he go? Richard wonders feverishly when he arrives at a dead end. The escapee is nowhere in sight, but a strong odor gives the Sanator a valuable clue. An open iron grate under his feet leads to the city sewers. The Sanator curses, grabs a burning torch from a nearby sconce, and jumps down. Richard plops into some foul, ammonia-smelling liquid, chastising himself for losing his mask. Splashes of waste sprinkle onto his robes, but his torn, resin-coated boots keep his feet dry. The Sanator climbs onto a stone threshold and catches his breath. He sees wet footprints on the floor. You're not getting away this time. Chasing away the stuffy semi-darkness with the torch, the Sanator follows the trail. He shoos away bloated green flies and zigzags through twisting turns until he finally reaches a dry, spacious room. Richard slowly raises his eyes and shivers run through his skin. An entrance, the gate to the Monostructure. Thick iron plates covered with all sorts of protective seals, are open. Through a black crack between them, a draft brings a foul smell of wetness hitherto sealed for many ages. How did he do that? Richard thinks, amazed that the thief was able to open the passage. His mind is full of doubt. After a moment of hesitation, the Sanator squeezes himself between the barely open plates. The inside edges of the gate are full of cog teeth, which makes them look like a mouth of some unknown sleeping beast, all ready to swallow Richard as soon as he wakes up. Richard takes his first steps, directing his torch down towards his boots. The escapee's footprints are beginning to fade. Richard clicks his tongue and rushes forwards. After getting to the first fork, he takes out a piece of chalk from his belt and draws wide sign on the blackened wall. This way, he'll be able to find his way back. The Sanator carefully touches a rusty railing and looks down into the gaping hole of a vertical shaft. A metal groaning comes from somewhere below. Only the sleeper knows what's down at the end of the abyss, and is there even an end at all? Richard jumps over a crack in the floor and draws another mark. He notices Aeliori writing covers the walls around him. Yellow squares and triangles make up some signs nearby, but Richard doesn't know what they mean. The further he ventures, the more often the neat stenciled inscriptions change into clumsy scribbles. They merge into a rough web of patterns covering everything, finally turning into unintelligible scratches made as if scribbled in panic, a work of many generations of Elia. The Senator barely manages to read certain words in the ancient language. Forgive us, Father, 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 Father. Richard shudders, feeling a chill run down his spine. This place was built a long time ago, when neither Tentaria, Rustant, nor any other human settlement even existed yet. Struggling through the veins of pipes and dangling rubber cords, the Sanator feels like he's inside the corpse of a giant, a creature so huge that the city above is just a thin crust of dirt covering it. And if enough cadaverous gases from the body were to erupt to the surface, Rustant would surely perish. In their pride, they rose above all others, failing to recognize the poison concealed within. He whispers the lines from the airborne codex. All that remains of the Monostructure's masters after their god departed are tribes of miserable beastly savages, the wild Aelia, capable of only robbery and theft. Some isolated tribes had stayed orderly and tame, but the Brotherhood did not pin any hopes on their future. At some point, Richard notices that the footprints have completely dried up. He stops, deciding that he can't go any further, hoping the torch doesn't die out until he gets back. The Senator is upset that he wasn't able to catch the escapee, but at the same time, he is happy he's leaving this evil place. He'll come back with a squad of brothers. The Hunter Corps and Quiet Safe Rustant barely numbered a dozen people, but they should be enough to ensure that not a single spawn of the Monostructure leaves its open gates. Purgators should go down and find out what the tailed beasts want. His legs carry him back on their own. Richard wanders around the confusing labyrinths with walls crying from wetness, looking for the chalk marks. It takes him a while to notice something sticking to the top of his boot. A sting, not more painful than a bee's. Wait, is that like a horned snail or something? The Sanator turns abruptly, making the torch's flame flicker, and jumps back. The ghastly creature waves his only sticky tentacle with a bloody proboscis in the air. Damn it! Richard whispers in desperation. He turns his head, noticing a bunch of other creatures with pale marble-like showers, slow and stupid, smaller than an average dog. They stalked their prey in the dark corners of the monostructure. The Senator wishes he didn't know what manner of beasts these were. He swallows saliva, feeling his leg go numb from the knee down. The Senator thrusts his torch into the sewer mollusk's head. It shrinks back into the shell without a sound, leaving a burnt stench behind. Richard tries to make a step back, but then realizes he can't. He can't feel his thigh anymore. A desperate and angry scream bursts from his lungs. Sewer mollusks were patient. Richard would still be alive when they gathered to feast on him, hovering his body with putrid ooze then eats through his flesh. Unable to accept his fate, the Senator decides to crawl to the exit using only his arms. He staggers and falls on his back, hitting his head on a metal plate. Unconsciousness leaves Richard, bidding him goodbye with a flash of pain and bitterness. A sting, another one, and one more. Something filthy flows through his veins, a pair of dancing coals in the darkness. Is this death? Anger's voice sounds as if it's coming through a thick layer of water. Remember, you promised to save me from the sea. Don't die. Richard isn't able to suppress a smile. I'm a man of my word. Richard greedily gasps for air with his resuscitated lungs. He coughs violently and turns to his side, spitting out remnants of bitter vomit mixed with lumps of thick, greenish phlegm. So, you've woken up after all? A calm female voice. The Senator slowly turns his head toward the source of the sound and notices a dark silhouette nearby. Someone's eyes shine in the darkness like two blue spinal gems. Another Elia? I thought you were a goner. Bet I'd wasted all of those injectors on you. What are injectors? The speaker lazily waves her hand. You've given me an antidote, Richard guesses. What happened to the mollusks? Where are we? You need to drink, or the toxin will poison your kidneys. The stranger gets closer to Richard and raises a metal bowl to his lips. Choking, Richard gulps down the overflowing water and asks for more. The woman hums indulgently. What kind of rubbish do they teach you in the Brotherhood? Acting this reckless and all? She saw my tattoo, Richard thinks grimly. But since I'm still alive, there's room for negotiation. Who are you? He asks after quenching his thirst. The stranger freezes, as if Richard had said something stupid, and then she stands up and disappears into the shadows. Hey! Don't go! The Senator writhes, doing his best to sit up, only then noticing how now his hands are tightly tied behind his back. Pathetic smoothers, as blind as newborn kittens. The Elia woman returns with a bunch of fluorescent mushrooms. Their glimmer lets Richard make out the features of the person he has been chasing to no avail. I should have guessed, he thinks, gazing at the porcelain skin and animal ears jutting out from underneath the ashen hair. My name is Myru. Yours? Murdoch, the Senator introduces himself. Richard Murdoch. Thank you for saving me, Myra. Myru. My... The Elia woman frowns and waves her hand in annoyance. Call me whatever you want, savage. The Brotherhood of St. Elmo repays kindness with kindness. Escort me to the exit and I promise that my brothers won't harm you. Mum. The Elia woman bursts into a strange growling laugh. I see your sense of humor is already back, human. You are on the mend. Richard grimaces. Well, it was worth a try. Could you make a fire, please? The senator decides to try one of his tricks. It's getting chilly here. So the whole level will run here and eat us? Silly Murwodoc. The senator heaves a deep sigh, deciding just to rest and regain his strength for now. Something tells him that he's going to need it soon. Silent reigns for a long time. Where's your pack? Richard finally asks, tormented by curiosity. Myru's voice becomes cold and prickly for some reason. Nowhere. I'm the only one left. So there were others after all. What brought you here? I'm betting it wasn't the reputation of our local sausages. The alien woman suddenly jumps up to Richard in one bound and pokes her finger into his chest. What brought you here, you smooth-eared fool? What brought all of you here? My people built this place. You're like ants. You pulled down reinforced concrete structures, calling them skeletal stones, and make necklaces out of batteries. Just speaking your barbaric, primitive language disgusts me. It's the first time Richard has heard a world alien speak so clearly, without any accent, but the meaning of some of her words eludes him. After a moment of silence, Myru returns to her seat. I need a working hydrogenerator logic board. What's that? The alien woman rolls her eyes. How do I explain it so that you'll understand? It's an ancient artifact that revitalizes the hydrogenerative. In short, the brain of a machine that can make clean water out of dirty water. Richard does his best not to show how confused he is by these strange words. Is one of the Serphorea right in front of him? He must make sure the legends are not lies. What is such a powerful relic doing underneath Rustant? Damn, this age of barbarism and decline, Myru mutters under her breath. She sighs heavily and raises her palms. This is a hydroelectric power plant, savage. Do you know what a hydroelectric power plant is? Centuries ago, a river flowed where your lousy town is now. My people turned its power into energy that powered machines and ignited millions of artificial stars. Can you imagine something like that? And then, the senator says, your people destroyed it, all with their own hands. At first, he thinks the alien woman is about to strike him. Myru fluffs up her tail and flattens her ears against her head. She jumps at Richard and raises her fist. Drip, drip, drip. Warm, salty drops falls on the senator's face. You know nothing, outsider, Myru whispers in a shaky voice. Nothing. Sorry. Thoughts flash through Richard's mind, trying to fit Myru into the familiar image of an alien. Snatches of chatter after classes, evening whispers inside the barracks, travel stories of elder brothers, savages full of hostility and animal instincts. Generations after generation, their ears slid farther down their heads and their fangs grew larger, hindering their ability to speak. Myru was too pristine for all of that. Smooth facial features, clear speech. Many rumors and stories spoke of the descendants of the Sheruyashi priests, who didn't need shackles for their shadows. Those who had abandoned the father, thinking that they would be able to shape their own fates without his charity. We are not freeloaders. Now the senator is ready to believe the Surf Borea's existence. Suddenly, Richard's stomach growls. The alien woman glares at him and steps away. I have no need for your apologies. After rummaging through supplies strewn about nearby, she extracts a chunk that immediately fills the air with the aroma of smoked meat. Ah, the goods she stole from the townspeople! Myru stretches out her arm and extends a chunk of corned beef towards Richard. He leans forwards, but the woman jerks her hand away at the last moment. The Sanator frowns and watches her move the chunk to the left and right, up and down, as if testing how his pupils react. Finally, Myru shoves the pinkish chunk into Richard's teeth and sits down next to him. After struggling to chew on it, the Sanator asks, "You had a reason to save me, right?"
Tit for tat. It so happens I really need your help.
My help? With what?
Let's go. I'll show you.
At this point, I don't really have a choice. If I protest, I'd probably die, right? Let's agree. Lead the way, the Senator shrugs. He feels somewhat indebted to her after all. Myru helps Richard to his feet and pushes him forwards into a round passageway covered with some metal trefoil. The walls behind them crawl with mushrooms that emit a shallow glow. Tell me, Richard asks, you're one of the Sir Freya, right? I thought it was just a fairy tale.
Good guess, meow duck.
I don't get it though. The legends say that you keep the secrets of your people by pretending to be wild Aelia.
So what?
The Senator is slow to reply, realizing he may not like the answer. Why did you reveal your cards to me? Myru stops and replies in a lifeless voice.
Because they're all dead. I'll get this damned board whatever it takes. Or all we did was for nothing.
She says quietly,
I needed to talk to someone, to speak my mind. And besides, you'll see soon enough.
They walk in silence until they get to a spacious hall with a round platform and metal beams. The scent of mushrooms grows stronger, becoming sweet and fragrant, making one want to snag a fleshy cap and devour it. Before the Senator realizes what this place is, Myru whispers in his ear,
Good luck, meow duck.
After saying this, the Aelia woman kicks Richard in the back. He screams and rolls down a small staircase. Okay, I should have protested. Pain. Okay, so wait, we're back at the start, right? The Senator arrives on dirty ground that reeks of dampness and decay. His head buzzes as if someone had rung it like a church bell. Oh, damn it! As soon as the veil dissolves, Richard studies his surroundings and notices the dead bodies of Aelia all around him. Some are already half-eaten. The Senator turns away after looking into the empty eye sockets of some unlucky gnawed face. Myra, you mangy cat! Richard shouts angrily after realizing she's using him as bait. The Aelia woman runs up the slatted stairs and stops. Myra! They lock eyes. It feels like an eternity passes before she takes out a dagger and gracefully throws it into the air. It spins and whistles onto the ground right behind Richard. Well, thanks for nothing. Struggling to overcome his dizziness, the Senator props himself up and turns his back against the blade, hoping his bones are still intact. Tightly bound by some unknown knot, Richard Numb's hands barely respond to his commands. Rippling tremors run through the ground, but Richard doesn't notice them. Trying to avoid injury, he fumbles around and places the tightened knot rope against the blade's edge. So what is in the shadows, huh? What beastly... Only when the air quivers with low, deep pulsations does the Senator slowly raise his head. Unable to tear his eyes away from the gaping darkness, underneath the dull archway. Richard's heart skips a beat when he senses an ominous stare directed at him. Somebody or something is gazing back at him from the thick, murky darkness. Come on, come on, come on! The Senator speaks through clenched teeth, shifting his wrists in desperation. Come on! Richard hears the creaking sounds of single threads breaking off the rope. Slow, too slow. A deafening hacking squeal resounds throughout the hall. Richard screams out of anger and despair, realizing he's not getting out of this place alive. Oh, what is that? The mushroom giant crawls out of its lair. Their thick, furry paws protrude from the darkness, followed by its upper body, wrinkled like a prune. Oh, damn! Then finally, its fat black abdomen emerges, covered with fungal mycelia. I see you're not hungry, yes? Right, just like that. Give me a moment. Richard keeps talking while cutting his bonds. The black-backed monster creeps closer and closer, as if surprised that its prey is not trying to run. And suddenly, there's light. It's the kind that burns your eyes like the rays of the midday sun. After a moment of confusion, a small fire of hope lights up in the Senator's soul. For as everyone knows, light always gives birth to a shadow.
Ma?
Myru cries. The Senator notices her standing in a pile of light, smack in the middle of the monster's lair. Apparently, this wasn't part of her plan. The mushroom giant shudders and turns towards the alien woman, choosing between her and Richard. Good boy, go home. You have an uninvited guest. At last, his pale wrists flare up with pain as blood rushes through them. The rope breaks apart. At the same moment, the monster lunges towards Richard at full speed. Richard shuts his eyes, takes a deep breath, and shouts at the top of his lungs. Anger! The shadow comes to life and rises up, throwing both Richard and the dagger into the air with a wave. Richard grasps the bone handle mid-flight and falls upon the giant with a war cry, piercing into nerve cluster. The monster emits such a high squeal that the Senator's ears immediately become stuffed up. He digs his knees in and clutches the blade, sunk deeply into the monster's back, trying to stay on top. The giant spins around desperately, trying to throw Richard off, but to no avail. Dark stripes spring from Richard's back like wings, grabbing the monster, blooming like a black flower, stopping it from falling over. Stab, stab, stab. The Senator strikes until he can no longer discern between the inky black blood and the shadows raging in a battle frenzy. He strikes until the monster starts staggering and its chitin, covered paws start to feverishly dance of agony. Richard jumps off the convulsing body and rolls on the ground. His shadow stretches behind him like a sable cloak, flowing down the defeated grip giant, disdainfully avoiding stains and pools of fetid blood. The Senator tries to catch his breath until the shadow returns to mimicking his silhouette under the bright rays of artificial light. Finally, he raises his hand and hurls the dagger forwards. His payback time. In the nick of time, Myru manages to turn around and jump aside. The blade pierces a metal drawer with a screeching sound, making it light up with a burst of orange sparks. The alien woman glares at the Senator, grabs something from the panel and dashes away. Richard gives chase without hesitation. You're not getting away this time! He feels renewed after defeating the monster, as if it gave him a second wind. Myru dodges from side to side, making it harder to catch her. Finally, Richard gathers his strength for one precise jump. His only chance. The Sanator jumps, stretching out his hand, and barely manages to grab the edge of the Alia's clothing. They both fall and roll on the floor. The Alia woman ends up on top. She screeches and claws at Richard's face, adding punches later. Undeterred, the Sanator grabs her tail and squeezes as hard as he can, causing Myru to double over and scream. Richard slaps her with the back of his hand and pushes Myru down on her back. His fingers close around her thin neck. "This monster set up a lair right in the control room," the Alia woman wheezes. "We really needed this cursed node at any cost." The Senator loosens his grip. "Show it to me." "Well?" Myru opens her hand. Perplexed, Richard studies a small cylinder covered with a crust of some type of grey clay. "Was it worth the effort? This rusty bauble?" "All that glitters is not gold." "Thanks for the dagger at least." "Silly male duck," Myru says with a smile. "It's just that you've been eaten too quickly without it." For a moment, Richard feels like he hears her voices off to one side. He slowly raises his head, straining his ears. Myru immediately starts writhing, trying to free herself. "Richard! Richard Murdoch!" A chorus of voices echoes under the ancient vault. The brothers seem to have managed to find Richard using the marks he left. "And what am I to do with you now?" the Senator asks. "That's up to you. Myru will not beg for mercy." Ugh. She did almost get me eaten, but I kinda like her. Let Myru go. Richard studies the depths of the Alia woman's vertical pupils and eventually releases his grip. He rises, coughing up dust, and turns to the side. Myru rubs her pale neck, slightly confused. "Strange, Meow Duck," she whispers. "Not at all like the other smooth-haired ones." "Oh, you know that much about us?" "More than I would like to." "Leave." "My people won't forget this, Richard. Farewell." She finally used my name, the Senator thinks with a grin. He glances behind his back, but not a soul is near. He can finally relax a bit now. If only he doesn't meet another monster on his way back, of course. "This is so not like you, Richard." The Senator shudders at hearing the familiar voice. "Weiger?" A brother X's silhouette emerges from the darkness. "He saw everything," the Senator thinks gloomily. Weiger spreads his arms in a theatric manner. "Always so righteous, duty above all, and suddenly this act of goodwill. Why?" His voice is calm, even kind, but Richard can see Weiger's shadow wavering as if a hurricane were tormenting it. "I couldn't save them," Richard hesitantly replies. "Back then in Hallenberg, I could not." "You could have," Weiger replies with a nod. "You could have done something." After saying this, he turns around and throws what is left of a raven mask to the Sanator. "Don't lose it again." Weiger turns into their shadows, walking towards the exit. The Senator seems to keep hearing his loud footsteps. It takes him a while to realize the sound is just the echo of the mask that fell on the metal floor. Blood rushes to his temples. "Weiger!" Richard calls out, but gets no reply. "Weiger!" Without blinking, the Senator watches the back of the departing brother until he completely disappears into the darkness. After a few moments pass, Richard sighs and moves off in the same direction. Weiger spoke of that day to no one. Milky white flower petals fall from the sky like snowflakes. They slowly drift to the ground, forming a fluffy carpet. It is so beautiful. Of course, this sky is not real, but the Sanator tries not to think about it. He lies peacefully, resting his head on Anger's lap. The shadow pensively twirls a strand of coarse hair with her finger. Richard asks out of nowhere, "Do you think he'll ever forgive me?" "Yes," Anger replies in a soft voice. "Of course he will." Richard sighs. "It's what I want to hear. But what about reality?" "If you know the answer, why ask the question?" "Fair enough. But this has to end someday. This has to reach some sort of finale." "Not here. Not in Rustant. And not now. He wants you to suffer and feel guilty." "I wish I could feel that guilt," the Sanator whispers. "But I've long been unable to. It's as if something inside me broke." "Who were they, those people?" "His family. Well, his real family. They went against all of our rules to find them." "But didn't they abandon him at the orphanage?" "Yes," Richard says with a smile. Anger tilts her head and looks the Sanator in the eye. "You know, humans are very strange creatures." "I can't argue with that," Richard thinks, smiling wider. He takes his time enjoying the reigning silence, gazing into the distance until a milky flower lands on the tip of his nose. "Have I ever shown you these flowers?" Richard frowns. "You did not notice spring has come." "You're right," Richard whispers, staring dreamily into the endless sky. "It is true." "It is true." The jewel of the Monostructure. So what do we reckon? Is that a good ending? I mean, we definitely got the rooting for the Alia ending. I really hope that they do actually design the book that goes into more what our thing with Weiger is. Yeah, it sounds like our choices killed his family. So yeah, it's gonna come to a head at some point, right? Oh, is Weiger gonna turn against the Brotherhood? I do enjoy these stories. And now, of course, we need to go find the other endings. There's definitely gonna be one where the Alia gets caught, right? Probably killed. Okay, so alternate path time. So of course we must return home. Slumber is the most important. Richard clicks his tongue angrily after remembering a similar incident when Winfred decided to throw a huge party. Let's just say they didn't come out of it unscathed. A much more sound decision would be to go to sleep. He and Avis are probably just bored, the Sanator thinks, stretching lazily. He leaves the semi-dark mortuary. The city greets Richard with silent streets and the slumberous singing of birds. And the Sanator is enjoying the feeling of exhaustion after work well done. So he doesn't get mad when he sees a couple of guards snoozing while on duty. After finally noticing Richard, one of the guards, who is just nodding off, shoves the other one with his elbow and jumps up to stand at attention. "Brother Sanator!" he calls out loud and clear after clearing his throat. Richard greets him by touching the brim of his hat. "What's the news?" "All is quiet in Rustant." "Well, blessings of the sleeper upon you then." Richard starts to move on, observing the guard stepping away from his shadow, stretching out from the lantern's light. The superstitious say that the shadow of an executioner, a mortician, or a Sanator can transmit diseases to evil people. The guards are clearly hiding something, but Richard is in no mood to press them for answers. "There's only this faith," one of the guards speaks up timidly, as if trying to clear his name. His companion looks askance at him and adds, "The number of thefts has risen lately. Nothing major, mostly food and other supplies." "So, are you looking for that thief?" Richard asks after turning around. The soldier stares into a pair of red crystals inside the raven mask, trying to guess the facial expression of his owner. "To the best of our abilities, Brother Sanator. It's no simple thief, you see." "Then what kind of thief is it?" "A tailed one." Richard glances at the empty beer mugs, nods without saying anything and leaves. On his way out, he hears the guards sigh in relief, glad they weren't scolded. Oh well, the good people of Tentaria should know that the Brotherhood of St. Elmo can not only be harsh, but also merciful. Maybe this way they'll finally stop conjuring up these wild, nonsensical stories. Okay. So, actually, we end up basically having more or less the same conversation with Anga. But, I suppose instead of when they say the two are not lying, instead of the brothers they're talking about the guards?
I feel like those two are not lying. At least they believe in their own words.
Richard brushes his fingers against the cat's wet nose. You know, sometimes people believe in the most ridiculous and incredible things.
I don't like this, Richard.
Neither do I, Anga. Neither do I. Richard has slept all day long, but he is still tired. Dreaming with a shadow doesn't really let your body rest. Such is the price of communing with another plane of reality. Richard chews on a loaf of bread, deep in thought, staring into the distance through the dark silhouettes of the spires and weather vanes. Avis and Winfred clearly wanted something, but what? His numb muscles creak like a tightly wound mechanism. He needs some exercise. The Sanator finishes his humble meal and goes downstairs to the courtyard. There he washes his face with rainwater from the barrel, snorting from the cold, and fixes his tunic wrinkled in his sleep. Oh, I suppose because we never went for the meeting in the first place, we're no longer in a rush to get back there, because we don't know what time we're supposed to be meeting. Magda shuffles out of the house's entrance. Her nicely starched dress shines with carmine, and an expensive hairpin binds her grey hair. According to rumors, the old woman was quite fashionable in her youth.
Richard, my boy, where are you going this late?
Taking a walk, Ma.
On an empty stomach? Let's go inside. I'll treat you to some cracklings.
I'm not hungry. The woman slyly insists.
Aren't you the one who started raiding the larder?
Uh-huh. Richard frowned suddenly, remembering the story of the guards. Fear flashes in Magda's kind, veiled eyes.
Oh, it's nothing. I'm just glad to have the good Brotherhood of Elm.
No, it's just... Richard feels awkward all of a sudden. I really didn't take anything. Magda nods sagely and shakes her withered finger.
I knew it was one of the neighbor's boys. Deserves a good flogging, that one.
The Sanator says goodbye to the old woman and descends into the grim forks. A thief, they said, with a tail. Richard estimates the distance to the tiger in his mind, affirming that it's impossible. Alia, in Rustant. Nonsense. The thief is probably just trying to fool the guards by donning fake ears and attaching a fake tail. A handful of stray cats are out of luck. And what if it's not a thief, but a group of them? If the Sanator stumbles upon a gang, he'll have a hard time dealing with them. Richard heaves a deep sigh and lights an oil lamp inside the shed. He wanted to breathe fresh air, not a heady bouquet of garlic, pepper, and marjoram. The Sanator smiles, reminiscing about how he almost fainted when he inhaled this aroma for the first time. Much time has passed since then. In the dim lamplight, Richard rubs ointment on his neck and pulls on his tall fisherman's boots and the worn leather gloves. Then he carefully wraps a cloak around himself and fastens the straps on his raven mask. The Sanator hesitates for a moment, trying to calm his worried heart. Finally, he puts on his hat and clutches his faithful cane. He fears no bandit while wielding it. Richard opens the front gate and goes out into the April evening, still as cold as winter. He wanders the empty streets among snoring houses with their chimneys, trying not to look into the windows lest he scares the children inside. The first stars twinkle in the clear, cold sky. The Senator notices a familiar threshold and decides to pay a visit. The door knocker strikes against the oak planks. Somebody grumbles inside. "Who's there?" "Huh, Walder? It's me." "Ah," the man's voice instantly becomes polite. "Good evening." "How's your health? Does the medicine work?" "It does, Brother Sanator." "Of course it does. My migraines are almost gone." "Well, that's good news." Walder breaks the awkward silence with a half whisper. "Is it okay if I keep the door closed?" "Brother Sanator, it's cold outside. The good wife can't handle the draft." Richard smiles, knowing full well this is not the real reason. "I only wanted to ask you a question. Have you noticed anything strange recently?" "Like what?" Walder asked hesitantly. "Like losing things. Food, for example." Richard hears a hawking man puff air into his mustache. "Can't say I did. My wife may have seen something, though. Should I ask her?" "No need to," the Senator replied. "Sleeper be with you." "Sleeper be with you, good brother." Richard turns away, stroking the beak of his raven mask, deep in thought. Maybe it was all just a string of coincidences. The wind that has risen in the evening howls inside the archway. The Senator dives into the darkness at a brisk pace, feeling his muscles come to life as he warms up inside his suit. It's time to go back. The wind creaks through rusty hooks, used to hang up animal carcasses outside the butcher's house. Richard glances at them, but then flinches when he notices the dark silhouette nearby. Somebody, wearing a long hooded cloak, is rummaging through some boxes lying on the street. Richard grips his cane tightly and gets closer. "Hey!" he calls out to the stranger. The figure turns sharply, revealing a pair of glowing blue eyes. An earlier, a half-eaten sausage hangs out of the beast's mouth. "Tasty?" Richard asks. A moment of hesitation lets the Sanator strike first. He thrusts his cane. The thief jumps aside. The cane tip hits the stone wall, relaying a sharp pain to his palm. Cursing under his breath, the Sanator swings again, but only cuts through air over and over. Richard then lunges out, trying to grab the thief. But the area slides backwards, twists its body and hits the Sanator with an ankle. The mask flies off his head and rolls away over the damp cobblestones. Well, I suppose at least this time we didn't break the mask. The night's chill washes the sweat from his face. A spicy aroma laced with flesh mingles with the sour iron scent of blood and the sickening sweetness of freshly butchered animal corpses. "Tenebra take you!" the Senator hisses after the fleeing thief. Richard doesn't waste precious breath shouting for the culprit to halt, but gives chase instead. The thief looks over his shoulder and dives into a nearby alleyway. "Where did you go?" Richard wonders feverishly when he arrives at a dead end. "Oh, I've got to ask, since we're actually the one to find the thief this time, do the Brotherhood have any reason to follow me down the sewers?" "Interesting." The escapee is nowhere in sight, but a strong odor gives the Senator a valuable clue. An open iron gate under his feet leads to the city sewers. The Sanator curses, grabs a burning torch from a nearby sconce and jumps down. Okay, so I'm not entirely sure if the Brotherhood is going to follow me because, like I said, they weren't chasing her this time. And we are definitely going to protest this time. The Sanator decides to stall for more time. Sooner or later, the brothers will notice his disappearance. Maybe he'll get lucky and they'll find him by the marks he left. Listen, Richard sighs. Judging from these mushrooms around us, I can make some assumptions.
About what?
Myru asks in a cold voice. About the reason for the demise of your pack. They're all dead, right? The alien woman narrows her eyes in displeasure. Let me guess, the Senator continues. It's twice as high as a human. It has no eyes, but it doesn't need them. Growths cover its wide black back. It has a symbiotic relationship with the mushrooms. In exchange for protection, it feeds on those who have the misfortune of trying to snack on the fragrant mushroom caps. We call this creature a mushroom giant. What kind of training do you have, acting this reckless and all?
So, the alien woman hisses angrily, baring her fangs. What are you saying?
I'm offering you a deal, Richard says. I'll help you take care of the monster, and you'll let me go unharmed.
Why should I trust you, Meow Doc? Maybe I should just use you as bait.
The Senator smiles grimly. I have no doubt that was your plan.
Then why should I change my mind?
You'll be able to give them proper last rites, Richard replies carefully. Your comrades. You can bury them according to the area traditions. Myru bites her lower lip and stares off into the distance.
You're not as stupid as you look.
She finally speaks again.
You know what buttons to push. But I'm also not an idiot. If you try to trick me, I'll never forgive you.
I give you my word.
You all say that.
The alien woman takes out a dagger, walks behind Richard and cuts his bonds with one precise movement. The Senator stifles a moan and starts rubbing his wrists, trying to restore the blood flow.
Catch!
As if out of thin air, Myra produces a cane and tosses it into the air. The Senator catches the familiar handle, with ease, feeling a rush of determination.
Sleep, Meow Doc. Call your Shara. We'll need her.
And where's yours? I've heard that you don't need seals to awaken and keep them at bay. Myru looks at Richard with muted disdain.
Unlike you, we have the sense of mercy not to awaken shadows, if we can't keep them safe.
You've got a plan, I take it.
No,
Myru admits.
But I'll have one by the time you wake up.
The Senator nods, lies back and slowly closes his eyes. The boughs are silent. Richard is forced to walk, using light as his only guide. He glides between cyclopean columns and grotesque faces growing straight out of the landscape. The closer he gets to Anger's chambers, the more the labyrinth's walls close in on him and bridges slide apart, preventing him from crossing. This is not the time to be resentful, the Sanator thinks grimly. Anger is already waiting for him, with her arms folded across her chest. She looks Richard right in the eye.
We nearly died today, the
shadow says in a cold voice. Things happen sometimes.
I don't want to hear about it.
Anger, we don't have much time. Richard tells her about his deal with Myru, noticing how his shadow's eyes fill with unhealthy curiosity.
Give me your body,
Anger suddenly says in a hushed voice. What?
Your eyes, arms, legs, everything, to the last bit.
The more the shadow speaks, the louder and more powerful her voice becomes.
Give me your body, and I'll crush that beast, and then Stand, the insolent alien wretch! Give me your body, and I'll destroy anyone who dares to stand in our way. Evil fires dance in anger's amber eyes.
Richard knows what happens when the jailer swaps places with his prisoner. He knows what happened to the fools who succumb to their shadow's sweet talk. The sleeper knows what shackles anger has ready for him, what she has dreamed of all these years, what scenes she has imagined. Richard has no desire to become the next passenger on the carriage to Remirat. No, the Sanator replies coldly.
You don't believe me.
Richard remains silent, not falling for the obvious trick.
Give it to me.
No. The Sanator watches Anger's eyes redden and fill with tears and desperation and anger. She suddenly turns into smoke with a whistle and flies at Richard's chest like an arrow hitting and clawing at him.
You will die, you fool, and I along with you, straight to the damned sea.
Finally exhausted, the shadow clings to the Sanator's chest, panting and gulping. Richard locks her in a tight embrace. Trust me.
I will,
Anger replies dismissively.
What choice do I have after all?
The Sanator kisses her on the forehead and closes his eyes, allowing his consciousness to dissolve into darkness. Richard raises his head, barely able to suppress a yawn. The alien woman is nowhere in sight. Myra!
Let's go, a voice comes from one side. I'm here.
Richard stands up and walks into a round passage, covered by some metal trefoil. Myra stands there, illuminated by the sallow glow of the mushrooms. Any ideas? The Sanator asks.
This place has spotlights.
What are those?
Sources of directional light. You'll have more than one shadow, Murdoch. In the center of the area, you'll have 4 of them.
What arena? Richard frowns.
Come on, you'll see for yourself.
They walk forwards in silence until they get to a spacious hall with a round platform and metal beams. The mushroom smell grows stronger, becoming sweet to the fragrant, making one want to tear off a meaty mushroom and cap and shove it into one's mouth. The platform looks similar to an amphitheater indeed. Richard looks around, and his heart skips a beat when he notices the bodies of dead Aelia. Some are already half-eaten. The Sanator turns away after looking into the empty eye sockets of a gnawed face. No, this wasn't a theatre, nor was it a circus. It was a fighting pit. Tell me, the Sanator hisses, what's your role in this?
Controlling the lights.
In other words, standing on the sidelines and watching. What a nice plan.
I didn't twist your arm. In for a ference, in for a rota.
Well, where are these spotlights of yours? The Sanator asks. Myru nods towards the dark archway.
That monster set up a lair right in the middle of the control room. First, lure it out of its lair so I can turn on the switches.
And how do I do that? The alien woman shrugs.
Improvise, meow, Doc. You are the performer here.
Richard curses and jumps off the low threshold, drawing in as much air as he can. Hey! He shouts. A noisy noise, a noise, an oyster! Silence. The Sanator is about to shout something else. Then he feels the low, guttural pulsations in the air. A tremor runs through the ground. Richard slowly raises his head, unable to tear his eyes off the gaping darkness underneath the archway. Richard's heart skips a beat when he senses an ominous stare directed at him. Someone or something is gazing back at him from the thick, murky darkness. The mushroom giant crawls out of its lair. Thick furry paws protrude from the darkness, followed by its upper body, wrinkled like a prune. Then finally, its fat black abdomen emerges, plastered with fungal mycelia. The black-backed monster slowly crawls towards Richard, as if dumbfounded by the unprecedented audacity of its prey. "Come on, Moira! Come on!" Clunk. Round lights fire up one after the other. The monster shudders, spins, and lets out a disgruntled squeal. "You are the Beast Slayer," Richard recites in his head. "You will fear no sorcery. You are the healer of plagues. You will wipe out betrayal. You are the shield of the weak. You will banish the spirits. Go forth and fight, but deeds shine brighter than names." The Sanator raises his cane and takes a fighting stance. At the same time, his shadow grows even longer, smearing precious ink on the ground. "Don't let me down, anger." A deafening, hackening squeal resounds throughout the hall. The giant rushes towards Richard at full speed, but he dodges aside, brushing the monster with his shadow. As if cut down with a sharp blade, one of the monster's paws flies from its body, spilling noxious liquid all over the place. The mushroom giant screams so loudly it numbs Richard's ears. It attacks him again after curling up what's left of its paw. Richard waves his hand, but the beast manages to dodge the shadows running on the ground. "You learn quickly," the Sanator thinks grimly. The monster presses in from the side, trying to force Richard out of the pit center. The Sanator barely manages to dodge the massive body flying at him, not expecting the beast to be able to jump like that. The ground shakes. Richard loses his footing and falls to the ground with a cry. A moment later, trembling, salivating mandibles appear before his eyes. The Sanator roars, shoves his cane into them and pulls the trigger with his thumb. An uncoiled spring whistles and releases the blade hidden inside the cane. The beast jumps back with a screech, waving its mandibles and spitting up inky ichor. "Tasty?" Richard asks after getting up. The monster circles around the area for a long time as if dancing, hesitant to attack. Finally it stops and rears up on hind legs, baring its mushroom-covered abdomen. Richard takes a while to process what's going on, and when the realization comes, he has barely enough time to try and shield himself with his scarlet cape. Like perfume from a vial, a noxiously sour cloud of spores sprays into his face. The cane falls out of his hand at once. The Sanator starts suffocating and falls to his knees, desperately gasping for air. The mushroom giant shrieks victoriously and lunges at Richard, but at the same moment, the Sanator hears a whistling sound. A dagger plunges into the creature's black abdomen up to the hilt. With a yowl, the beast staggers and switches his attention to Myra, standing nearby. She is now unarmed with an arm hanging in the air. The angered monster rushes towards the alien woman and rams her so hard she flies into the wall with a scream. There won't be another chance. Having come to his senses, Richard raises on trembling legs. With the last of his strength, he moves forwards. 4 shadows combine into one and slash through the monster's body like a living wave, instantly cutting it to pieces. The beast remains squelched in agony and spread across the ground in a black puddle. Finita la commedia. The Sanator doubles over and goes into a violent hacking coughing fit. "Oh, is that Weiger?" The smiling alien woman lazily claps her hands. "Never mind, it's just the woman we know is there." Scarlet blood trickles from the corner of her mouth. "Bravo, Miadoc." "You alright?" The Sanator wheezes. "As you can see." Myru suddenly shudders and covers her mouth. as if fighting an urge to vomit. You have a concussion.
It's nothing.
Richard shakes his head and opens his belt bag. He takes out a strip of white canvas, walks up to Myru, and carefully starts wrapping it around her injured head. Every now and then, the Senator brushes against her twitching grey ears.
That tickles me, Doc.
Well, you'll have to endure it. They gaze at each other in silence, smiling in gratitude. Now what, Richard thinks? Are we enemies again? At the same moment, Myru asks quietly,
Will you help me bury them? I think one of my ribs is broken.
Richard nods. He takes off his robe and smeared with the monster's black blood, leaving only his tunic on.
Feeling hot?
Myru moves her ears in suspicion. We can't carry them in our arms. We need a stretcher. His sweaty body feels a light breeze blowing through the hall. Smells that he has been hidden under his garments hit his nose. Sour, sweet and tart. A mix of sweat and the sleeper knows what has passed through his skin, along with the antidote. He'll have to spend a whole day in the bathhouse when he gets back. After tearing off a sharp piece of steel from a nearby wall, Richard counts the bodies again. Then he starts digging 5 graves in the damp soil piled up over the century, covered in places with moss with a white film of fungus on top. Now and then, he wipes the sweat from his brow and stops to catch his breath. It's been a long time since Richard had had to dig graves by himself. As soon as he attained his rank, the mortuises took over that work. The Sanator reminisces about the young happy faces of brother initiates. How many of them are still alive? How many have died in suicidal missions like this one? Richard tries to remember their names, but they blur into an array of meaningless symbols in the bottomless annals of the Brotherhood. For deeds shine brighter than names. Cursing, he tries to distract himself from these grim thoughts, and glances at Myru. She is gathering something from the dead bodies, amulets and baubles, small glass vials that she carefully counts and sniffs under her breath. Richard looks a bit envious. If only he could get a couple of them and hand them over to Kernberg's scientists. Finally finished digging, the Senator sits on the edge of the last grave and clears his throat. Myru wearily hands him a flask. The Senator greedily sips from it and then shifts his gaze to the elder woman. One of the mysteries of the North, the Surfer Air. No, now she was just a woman who has lost her loved ones. Richard sighs deeply and stands up. Help me carry them. Together, he and Myru gather the remains of the 5 Alia, placing the ravaged bodies on the stretcher hastily, made from the Senator's garments. Richard notes to himself how strangely the hearing canals sit within their skulls, and how their movable tails connect their spines. It's almost professional curiosity. Myru covers the bodies of her comrades with stones. Shards of coloured glass and metal scraps is the least she can do to keep the scavengers from feeding on them. Richard sprinkles some more soil on top for good measure. When Myru walks up to the graves, Richard gets ready to cover his ears. For him, his brothers, he knows how the wild area's funerals go. Clashing tambourines, ceaseless high-pitched screams, and frenzied dances, until all the participants collapse from exhaustion. After standing in silence for a minute, the area woman turns away and leaves. Is that it? The Senator asks, surprised. No howls, tambourines, or pipes loud enough to bother to notice their souls? Myru gives him a look usually reserved for toddlers or complete morons. We have no father anymore. Smooth ears. He won't come back no matter how much we dance or rattle our instruments. Well, isn't that sad? Do you believe in anything yourself, Murdoch? Richard scratches his head, puzzled. No one has ever asked him this, not even himself. Sleeper St. Elmo? Pages of holy scriptures flash in front of his eyes. Without triggering a response from his soul, Richard looks down, wearing a bitter smile. In myself? Myru nods almost imperceptibly.
We're alike, you and I.
Myra,
Yes.
my condolences.
You needn't bother. They didn't die in vain.
After saying this, the alien woman extracts her dagger from the monster's remains, brushes noxious ichor off it, and walks under the archway. Richard follows her, squeezing himself into a tiny room with a bunch of metal drawers plastered with ooze. Myru pries a lid open with her blade, and it rebounds with a crash, raising a heap of orange sparks into the air.
Ah!
The alien woman exclaims. Judging from the tone of her voice, Richard decides it was a curse. Myru sticks out the tip of her tongue and cautiously starts rummaging inside. Finally, she pulls out a small metal cylinder. Is that the node you were looking for? The Sanator asks, confused.
Yes.
So all of this was for the sake of this rusty bauble?
All that glitters is not gold.
Where did you learn that expression? Richard asks with a smirk. Myru suddenly jerks up her head as if listening to something. Her ears twitch from side to side.
It seems your friends are here.
Where? Richard asks, frowning. Then he finally hears it too. Richard! Richard Murdoch! Okay, so they did follow me down as well. It seems his brothers have managed to find him using the marks he left. Myru sighs and walks behind Richard.
I can't take any more risks. I'm sorry, Murdoch.
Huh?
And goodbye.
Ow! Well, I don't even get the choice to That makes sense. Before Richard can turn around, sparks fly in front of his eyes, and his consciousness sinks into darkness. From somewhere above comes the muffled voices of his brothers. Is he wounded? Look, there's a bump on the back of his head.
Nonsense. He's just lost a lot of strength.
Richard smiles involuntarily, touched by their kindness. He enjoys the rhythmic sway of the stretcher, his eyes still closed, falling more and more into pleasant sleep. Richard stands in Anger's chambers, barely able to contain his laughter.
What do you think?
The shadow asks, wiggling her cat ears and twitching her tail.
Like it?
No, I prefer you without that. Well, at least you decided against growing whiskers.
And I think you do like it a lot.
Oh, come now, Richard says. Jealousy doesn't suit you. Besides, I'm due for a very unpleasant conversation at the Harsberg already.
It's your own fault.
True, the Senator agrees. After a brief pause, he asks, do you think we might see her again?
Would you like to?
No, Richard laughs. I've had enough adventures for now, anyway. Seemingly pleased with his reply, Anger snaps her long fingers. Her feline trappings instantly turn into smoke and dissolve into the air. Richard looks at the grotesque shapes in the chambers, Anger's interpretations of the medical tools she had seen, and neighbor knows what else. Should I show you the reality? Something really special.
How generous of you, the shadow says sarcastically. And here I was thinking that I'd have to look at corpses in the mortuary my whole life.
What would you like to see?
The Milky Mountains,
Anger replies without hesitation.
They must be beautiful, like stones made out of milk.
Someday, the Senator promises, but I'm afraid you'll be a bit disappointed.
You're not lying.
Richard smiles. I'm a man of my word. Okay, interesting. So the only way to capture her is to go along with her plan? Okay, so we can't make friends, that's what we gotta do. Okay, we're back. And I'm guessing then this should be our last ending. So wait for the brothers. I'm here, Richard shouts, keeping his eyes on the alien woman. Here, here, here. An echo answers him. Myru's eyes turn dim, glassy, as if she's lost all interest in what's going to happen. Her animal ears droop limply upon her head. Behave and the brothers won't harm you, Richard whispers, licking his parched lips. The alien woman slowly turns her head away without saying a word. The clatter of boots and the flicker of torches get closer and closer. Richard takes the stand, shifting from one foot to the other, waiting for someone to give him the floor. The light flowing through the windows shines on the polished helmets of the soldiers, casting sunbeams across the hall. Finally, an interrogator in a white cloak addresses the Sanator. We found this in her possessions. Any ideas? The Sanator frowns, studying the small metal cylinder, then he shrugs. I don't know. Maybe some kind of bauble or amulet? The interrogator spends a few long moments staring into Richard's eyes. All right, you can return it to her. He waves his hand. You're free to go, Brother Murdoch. Richard nods and glances at the alien woman one last time. Just for a brief moment, something flashes in her blue eyes. Surprise. Gratitude, maybe? Who knows? Richard closes the heavy brocaded door behind him and leaves. He whistles an old tune, walking down a corridor where the sunbeams light up dust particles floating in the air. And random passerby might have noticed with surprise that Richard's shadow was swaying as if dancing to the rhythm. Okay then, so there's actually no particularly bad ending. I mean, it seems like no matter what, Myru always gets away with her bauble or trinket or whatever it is, right? Ooh. Do we think Myru's gonna be back in a sequel game? I do enjoy the Sanator series, I'm not gonna lie. Well, I hope you enjoyed that playthrough of Sanator, the Jewel of the Monostructure. I do enjoy our stories on the Dear Sweet Plague Doctor, and the art is always beautiful. I have such a fun time. If you would like some more stories of our dear sweet Richard Murdoch, then why not check out my playthrough of Sanator, the Scarlet Scar, which is of course in the same universe. And if you enjoyed your time here, I would really appreciate if you subscribe to this channel. But other than that, I have a spooky day and I'll catch you next time, guys.